Okay, we're on our third lecture here, third night. Welcome back. We're using, again, the Apostolic Fathers in English by Michael Holmes. Good book. And gives you, again, kind of an introductory trip through some of the early church fathers and writings. Tonight we're doing Ignatius of Antioch, as you can see. The icon you can see there that I've chosen, some of them do not have the lions. I figured I would put one of the ones that had the lions in it. You can guess why it's like that. Martyred, eaten by lions in the Colosseum. So pretty interesting how they depict it. You know, one's crawling up, the other one's crawling down, and just can't imagine what this looks like. So that's our book. We're on. He is the third bishop of Antioch. Don't ask me. I think Peter gets named as the first, and who is the second? The second one's Linus. Thank you. Linus is the second.
Oh wait, sorry. You're right.
Is it not Linus? I had it. It's. I don't even think he lists it. Somebody, I'm sure. I know someone's looking it up on their phone right now.
Might be Bishop of Antioch. Is succession from Peter?
Yeah, but he's third.
He's third. Okay.
Yeah, he's third. There's one in between him. Somebody's looking it up for me right now. I know there. So he is the third. I know that much.
Okay.
Yeah. Some say he's the second. But there's another name. I read it. I thought it began with an E.
Eusebius?
When Eusebius is a historian. Sorry. Iodius. That's the one. I knew it began with an E, but I couldn't remember the name. Iodius. So we're thinking second or third bishop of Antioch. So he's martyred in Rome. The dates also fluctuate. Is he the second or the third bishop? He's also, I got 103. I've seen 107, 110, 111. So somewhere in the ballpark there is when he's martyred. Sorry to get there. No, I'm sorry, moving my pages too quickly here. He writes 7 letters. There are 7 letters attributed to him, and they're thought to have all been written on his way to being martyred. That he's taken captive, I should say, and being transported. And there's churches he's going to write to along the way. We'll get to those and mention those in a while. He's arrested in Syria, and this leaves the church without a head. It seems from the beginning in the early churches, you'd have a bishop would be essentially functioning as the leader of the church. There were also presbyters there, but a bishop kind of had to be there. And it wasn't, I think, until the church continued to expand so much that the bishop kind of stepped away from that role a bit and became more of an overseer of multiple parishes. And a kind of diocese begins to form. But it seems in the beginning, he's there. So that's why I say it leads their church leaderless at the time. And so that's kind of an issue for him. And that's a concern for him. And he does mention that in his letters as well, while he's riding along and writing. He's taken into custody. So as he's in custody, he's taken to Rome. Obviously, that's where the execution is going to take place. And it seems like it's similar to today. This helpless, good Christian man is taken by 10 soldiers show up. You know, when the police show up, it's always 15 trucks and people rappelling from helicopters and things like that. And just because somebody was somewhere they shouldn't have been. And so here we are with Ignatius. He's got 10 soldiers. He calls them leopards that are escorting him. It seems to me, it feels like there's some paranoia there with the leadership of evil. You've got 10 people coming to arrest this man. Perhaps they'd say, well, we want to ward off any struggle. He might have some followers, some of his little followers, his disciples might want to put up a fight. That's not the pattern of Christians when they're being arrested, especially in the first century. They just say, go ahead, take me, like you heard last week. Just go ahead and take me. I'm ready to go. And so anyway, they did not need the full 10, but they did anyway. So on the route here to Rome, there's multiple path options to get to Rome, and they take a northern path, it says, which means that he will not be able to pass all of the churches, some of his churches, some he will. And so he's going to have to bypass them. So those churches are Tralles, which is Tralles, Tralles, it's pronounced. Magnesia and Ephesus. You know Ephesus, right? The book of Ephesians, Ephesus. These are probably why these churches are included in the ones that he wrote to on the way to Rome. He's whether he's going to pass them or not, he's writing to them, but he's not going to be able to see them all. But they seem to allow him to, write, has the freedom to write letters, and that's hand them to someone to have them run off and deliver it. So it appears to be three things that the author says that concern him. Sorry, let me keep it there. Concern him when he's writing these letters. You pick up a similar theme in all of them, really, as you glance. They're all very short, 2 pages, 3 pages in this book. He's first concerned about false teachers that sneak in or creep into the church. He's always concerned about unity within the church and hoping that doesn't fall apart. There's always the church, as we all know, every church is made up of a lot of different personalities, and there can be disruption in churches. So he's always emphasizing you need to love one another and settle your disputes and be Christ-like to one another. And then, of course, the third thing that he mentions in more or less in each letter, it seems, is his impending death. He knows that he's going to his death, and that's just a matter of time to get there. So those are the 3 items that he touches on within the letters in various ways. Again, like I said, they're very short. The letter to the Ephesians is the first one we're going to touch on. And if I had anything for that, I don't think I've got any notes for that. He basically, the first one, I don't think this is the order that he wrote them, but it has that one first. He thanks them for their visit and their assistance, or the visit and the assistance that they've given. As he thanking for the assistance that they have given him, support as he's gone along the way. And I'm going to read number 1 here. It says, "For when you heard that I was on my way from Syria in chains for the sake of our shared name and hope, I was hoping through your prayers to succeed in fighting with the wild beasts in Rome, in order that by so succeeding I might be able to be a disciple. You hurried to visit me." So he's thanking them that they are finding the path that he's on and are able to sort of intercept him in whatever town he's going to, and being able to probably just to be with him, to pray with him, and to get any kind of wisdom that he might be giving them as he's on his way to his death. Obedience to the bishop. This is one that comes up quite often too. The other martyrs of the other fathers, of course, have written about that. He does as well. There seems to be this importance about explaining to them that the bishop has this authority that's been given to him by Christ, and obedience to the bishop is important. He got something. He says, I'm not commanding you as though I were someone important. For even though I'm in chains for the sake of the name, capital N, name for Christ, obviously, I have not yet been perfected in Jesus Christ. For now, I'm only beginning to be a disciple. So the discipleship, I think, is tied to the martyrdom in a sense. That he's saying that we're all kind of disciples of Christ in a sense, but he's saying, I'm not. We all say I'm not worthy, right? I'm not there yet. My discipleship will be when I finally face my death and face it as without any kind of
If you think about that, that's very difficult.
Sure.
Christ does tell us, by speaking through the apostles, that the servant is not above his master. If they
Right.
hated and persecuted me, so they would be.
Yeah.
But they have good courage.
Yeah.
In this world you will have many troubles, but
Yeah. Take heart, of overcome the world. Right. Yeah. It's very nice. He goes on. He says, I've therefore taken the initiative to encourage you, so that you may run together in harmony with the mind of God. Once have that mind of God, mind of Christ thing, to be all of one mind. In other words, for Jesus Christ, our inseparable life is the mind of the Father, just as the bishops appointed throughout the world are the mind of Christ. So again, that authority of the bishop is really important. You really see a really important emphasis that they make that the bishop is someone who's really someone who's very, very spiritual, very holy, very learned, and very Christ-like, and that's a person who's elevated to become a bishop. And so he's saying that those who are bishops are to have the mind of Christ. And then here in chapter 4, he says it's proper for you to run together in harmony with the mind of the bishop, as you are in fact doing. And like Paul, again, you're already doing it, just do it more and more. For your council of presbyters, that's the priests, which is worthy of its name and worthy of God, is attuned to the bishop as strings to a lyre. So you're like an instrument, right? You're an instrument that's well-tuned. He gets into warnings about teachers of error here in chapter 7. There are some who are accustomed to carrying about the name maliciously and deceitfully while doing other things unworthy of God. You must avoid them as wild beasts, as if they were, for they are mad dogs that bite by stealth. You must be on your guard against them, for their bite is hard to heal. And then down in chapter 9, he says, but I have learned that certain people from elsewhere have passed your way with evil doctrine, but you did not allow them to sow it among you. You covered up your ears in order to avoid receiving the things being sown by them. So, in other words, they rejected this false teaching that had come into their congregation, into their midst, and so he's saying, he's congratulating them, so to speak, on doing that. The personal greetings. I'm jumping over to 21. This is the end of the book. I'm not going to read all the letters, obviously, but just going to some highlights in some of them. He says, finally, I'm devoted to you. This is how he closes his letter. And to those to whom, for the honor of God, you sent to Smyrna, from where I'm writing to you, and thanksgiving to the Lord, and love for Polycarp, who was from there, as well as for you. Remember me as Jesus Christ remembers you. Pray for the church in Syria, from where I'm being led to Rome in chains, as I, the very least of the faithful there, have been judged worthy of serving the glory of God. Farewell in God the Father and in Jesus Christ, our shared hope. So they're mentioning Polycarp, who we talked about last week. Of course, they know one another. It's just a nice connection to know that these fathers are all sort of relatively near in the same period. There's a letter to the Magnesians. That's one we don't have in our Bible. So it would be the letter Magnesia, I assume it would be, like Magnesia. And this one is, and here he has an issue about Judaism and Christianity. He says this in this letter. He says, do not be deceived by strange doctrines or antiquated myths, since they are worthless. For if we continue to live in accordance with Judaism, we admit that we have not received grace. Yeah, so Judaizers are there perhaps, or just, again, some of them have not quite made the transition in some sense. He says, for the most godly prophets lived in accordance with Jesus Christ. This is why they were persecuted, being inspired as they were by his grace, in order that those who are disobedient might be fully convinced that there is one God who revealed himself through Jesus Christ, his Son, who is his word that came forth from silence, who in every respect pleased the one who sent him. Please, Father, the Son pleasing the Father. He says, he came to the newness of hope, no longer keeping the Sabbath, but living in accordance with the Lord's day, on which our life also arose through him, and his death, which some deny, the mystery through which we came to believe. So, of course, there's that importance of changing from that Sabbath, of the Jewish Sabbath, to the Lord's day. So so Magnesians perhaps are having an issue with Jews in their congregation. He finally says, therefore, having become as his disciples, let us learn to live accordance with Christianity. For whoever is called by another name than this name does not belong to God. It is utterly absurd to profess Jesus Christ and to practice Judaism. There you go. And then finally he says, now I write these things, my dear friends, not because I've learned that any of you are actually like that, but as one who is less than you, I want to forewarn you not to get snagged on the hooks of worthless opinions but instead to be fully convinced about the birth and the suffering and the resurrection that took place during the time of the governorship of Pontius Pilate. So he's standing firm in the Christian faith. If you are, what does he say there again? It's absurd to profess Christ if you're still practicing Judaism.
I think it's interesting.
Yeah.
That, he exhorts the Magnesians not to listen to doctrines and teachings that come from Judaism,
Yeah.
but rather to concentrate on true doctrine. And it all concerns the historical Christ, his incarnation.
Yeah.
So you have to wonder, because even before this time, there was bad blood on the part of official or rabbinic Judaism, and especially Jewish Christians, because they thought the rabbinic Judaism considered the Jewish believers in the church to be apostates.
Right.
And so
Right.
you have to wonder if some teaching, maybe most of it, that was coming out of Jewish synagogues at that time were polemical. In other words, they were attacks on historic Christian doctrine. Sounds like it.
Yeah.
And, because the Bible said that the soldiers were bribed to say that the disciples came in the night and stoned them away.
Right.
And it said that this story continues.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah. Yeah. I think with rabbinic Judaism, it was kind of an attempt to try to sort of put down any belief that this Messiah was really Jesus. I mean, that Jesus was that Messiah, right? I mean, that seemed to be what developed. It moved away from.
A lot of Jews from the time of let's say, Pentecost. I mean, 3,000 Jewish men in the gospel, they believe in the sins and are baptized.
Yeah.
So there probably was a sizable minority of Jews up until, let's say, 70 AD who embraced Christ and came into the church, but the majority didn't.
Right.
So exegetes like Peter Leithart is one of my favorite theologians. Read, especially the book of Revelation, and interpret the symbols, for example, the land piece, the sea piece, and all that, as a picture of the temple established in Jerusalem, working with the Romans to undermine the church.
Those creatures that you hear in
That's
Revelation.
Right,
Huh. Interesting. Huh. Interesting. Not just Rome, but Jews as well. Interesting. Huh. Okay.
One of the letters, the letters to the churches in the first couple chapters.
The Revelation.
One of them talks about, I know that you're persevering under the synagogue of Satan. I forget exactly how it's phrased.
Right.
Evidently, there's some group of Jews that cozied up to the Romans that are using their
colluding and right. Yeah, interesting. Yeah, there's a lot of interesting things going on around this time. End of the first century and beginning of the second. We have there's a recurring theme again about obedience to bishops and presbyters. Again, I mentioned that to you here in his letter to the Trallians. Trallins, Trallians, I should say. He says there, when you are subject to the bishop as to Jesus Christ, it's evident to me that you are living not in accordance with human standards, but in accordance with Jesus Christ. It's essential, therefore, that you continue your current practice and do nothing without the bishop, but be subject also to the council of presbyters, as to the apostles of Jesus Christ. Furthermore, it's necessary that those who are deacons of the mysteries of Jesus Christ please everyone in every respect. For they are not merely deacons of food and drink, but ministers of God's church. Therefore, they must avoid criticism as though it were fire. So, the deacon, right? The deacon was kind of the one that didn't Peter say, we can't be waiting on tables. And so that's when they formed the diaconate It seems to be that was when the diaconate seemed to be formed, and they were the ones who were kind of taking care of the needs of the congregation. And
Yeah, I was going to say something about it as well.
sure.
Some people, I think, interpret the apostles saying it is not for us to wait on tables because we need to concentrate on prayer and the mystery of the word.
Right.
They'll understand that as the apostles really disparaging taking care of the physical needs of the Jerusalem church, especially those of our fathers. I don't see that at all. I do see that they saw a need in the church.
Mm-hmm.
They realized that they, even though they had all the authority, really couldn't,
Right.
in themselves, take care of that need. And so they chose 7 Grecian-speaking Jews in the congregation and laid hands on them and gave them that ministry of looking out for the poor.
Yeah.
It was actually an apostolic duty.
Right. And I think that, I mean, that's just simple commands of God, right? Widows, orphans, we would take care of the poor and the helpless. And, I mean, that's just basic
Precisely.
Christianity. So yeah, if anybody thinks that they're disparaging those roles and we're too important for that, we need to go and do the important stuff of preaching. Yeah, I don't believe that at all. Yeah, I would definitely
It's
think that.
also interesting that in the cases of both Stephen and Philip, they turned out to be remarkable preachers.
Right.
And
Philip and the eunuch and
evangelists.
Yeah, Stephen,
So
first
I
martyr.
think the Holy Ghost wants us to notice that
Sure.
in connection to the establishment of this new office in the church.
Right. Sure. Yeah, I think so.
I think it's not entirely new. I mean, it's new in the sense that they're doing a new restructuring.
Right.
Like, the
Sure.
Passover is sort of commuted over to Easter and that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
But if you look in Exodus through Deuteronomy, you see that the Levites had that role. They had, obviously there was the high priest and certain of the priests, the sons of Aaron, that are ministering to the temple itself and the actual worship.
Right.
But then you also have other Levites that are sort of like the medical officers and the distributors. I don't know what you call that.
Yeah.
People that are
Distribution people. Yeah.
Because I mean, it's listed as, if you had, now also they have the role of judge, like legislative or not legislative, jurisprudential
Sure.
judge in our sort of more modern sense. Because if you have a conflict that you can't resolve with your brother, you take it to the priest.
That's right.
And if he can't resolve it, he kicks it up to Moses.
Right. That's right. Yeah. Sure.
So this role of the deacons is not something that they just invented out of whole cloth.
No.
They were probably basing it on the Levitical but non-priestly office.
Sure. So just solidifying it.
The church came to recognize the typological correspondence between the Old Testament Levites and the Deacons.
Right. Sure. Yeah. All right. Here, this letter to the Trojans says he writes about suffering and true discipleship. I'm not able to write to you about heavenly. Am I not? Question. Am I not able to write to you about heavenly things? But I'm afraid to, lest I should cause harm to you, who are mere babes. So bear with me, lest you be choked by what you are unable to swallow. For I myself, though I am in chains and can comprehend heavenly things, the ranks of the angels and the hierarchy of principalities, things visible and invisible, despite all this, I'm not yet a disciple. So here's this high comprehension, again, of sort of heavenly things, but then he says, I'm not even a disciple. Just kind of an encouraging, I thought it was a nice encouraging little paragraph. That's chapter 5. That's all of chapter 5 right there. In moving up to 13, he says later on, there's some personal greetings at the end of this letter. Farewell in Jesus Christ. Be subject to the bishop as to the commandment, and likewise to the council presbyters. I believe there's discussion somewhere about someone taking over that role for him too, because he's obviously the bishop. He's been taken away. Someone else is filling that gap. My spirit is dedicated to you, not only now, but also when I reach God. Sometimes just a sentence pops out at me. My spirit is dedicated to you now, but also when I reach God. So of course, when I die, I'll be with God, but you'll still be on my mind, and I will still be sort of praying for you even at that point. He writes a letter to the Romans. We know that, parallel in the Bible. There he has this one. He definitely does a lot more emphasis on his martyrdom. I didn't check the order of these letters, but if he's getting, if I guess if he's writing to the Romans, perhaps he's on his way getting closer to it, since that's kind of his destination anyway. So definitely more emphasis on martyrdom in here. I will get you those quotes as well. He says here, just a couple of here. He says, pray that I'll have the strength both outwardly and inwardly to that I may not just talk about it, but want to do it, so that I may not merely be called a Christian, but actually prove to be one. This is as he's getting to the martyrdom. He says, I'm writing to all the churches, and I'm insisting to everyone that I die for God of my own free will, unless you hinder me. I implore you, do not be unseasonably kind to me. Let me be food for the wild beasts, through whom I can reach God. I am God's wheat, and I'm being ground by the teeth of the wild beasts, so that I may prove to be pure bread. Better yet, coax the wild beasts, so that they may become my tomb, and leave nothing of my body behind, lest I become a burden to anyone once I have fallen asleep. He wants them, he's encouraging them. I want them to eat me. In other words, I want their bodies to be my tomb. From Syria, all the way to Rome, I'm fighting with wild beasts on land and sea, by night and day, chained amidst 10 leopards. Those are those 10, that he's in the brackets. That is a company of soldiers who only get worse when they're well treated. Yet because of their mistreatment, I'm becoming more of a disciple. Nevertheless, I am not thereby justified. May I have the pleasure of the wild beasts that have been prepared for me, and I pray that they prove to be prompt with me. I will even coax them to devour me quickly, not as they have done with some whom they were too timid to touch. It's interesting. Some of the animals are... I'll mention that in a second. And if, when I am willing and ready, they are not, I will force them to eat me. Fire and cross and battles with wild beasts, mutilation and mangling, wrenching of bones, the hacking of limbs, the crushing of my whole body, cruel tortures of the devil. Let these come upon me. Only let me reach Jesus Christ. So, again, you see this with saints. There's accounts of certain saints who have been, just so holy, so to speak, and so in tune that the animals, whether it's a wild animal of some sort, just doesn't eat them. Some have sort of, they'll live in secluded places, and the wild bears will just be with them and not do anything to them. And so, Francis of Assisi's kind of one was an animal person, but lots of saints where animals seem to dwell with the people, and that's kind of like they'll explain it by saying that they've reached a kind of a level of sanctity, a level of holiness that because that's the state we are to be living in originally, right? We lived amongst the animals, and the animals didn't eat Adam and Eve. They dwelt among the animals, and because of the fall, all of creation suffers. And so animals turn on us, they turn on each other, they're afraid. The Bible says now they're going to be afraid of you, and you see that many of them are afraid of you. And probably the ones who try to eat us are just afraid, so they will attack us. So it's just interesting that he's saying that some, it sounds like he's referring to some saints here have been put to the lions, put to whatever the wild animals are to them, and the animal has been almost afraid to go near them, or it's been just sort of tamed by the holiness, the presence of their holiness. That's kind of neat to. He goes on, he says, him I seek, and so that's Christ, who died on our behalf. Him I long for, who rose again for our sake. The pains of birth are upon me. So he's calling his martyrdom a birth, kind of a birth into a new life. Right? Bear with me, brothers and sisters. Do not keep me from living. Do not desire my death. Do not give to the world one who wants to belong to God, or tempt him with material things. Let me receive the pure light, for when I arrive there, I will be a human being. So that fullness of humanity upon death as well we reach. Right now we're not there. We're on our way to that state of being as we're supposed to be. Allow me to be an imitator of the suffering of my God, meaning Christ again. And the last one here is, the ruler of this age wants to take me captive and corrupt my godly intentions. Therefore, none of you who are present must help him. Instead, take my side, that is God's side. For though I am still alive, I am passionately in love with death as I write to you. So, yeah, that's probably he writes to the Philadelphians. There's a Church of Philadelphia, Smyrna. That was where Polycarp was from. There's the letters there, additional letters. I'm not going to go through those as well. Very much the same kind of language, same kind of writing in those as well. And then just kind of a closing thing on this. Ignatius, of course,